It started with a murder, but not the kind you expect. No masked figure in the shadows, no desperate struggle in a dark alley. This killing was designed. Every detail mapped, every risk calculated, as if human life itself had been reduced to a problem on a chalkboard. For years, police hunted the man they called America's smartest killer. A man who treated murder not as an act of passion, but as an equation to be solved. His name was Ted Kaczynski. To the world, he would become the Unabomber. But before that, he was something else entirely, a prodigy. Born in 1942 in Chicago, Ted grew up different. By 16, while his classmates were worried about prom and driver's tests, he was accepted into Harvard. A boy among men, awkward, brilliant, and alone. Professors described him as quiet, almost painfully shy. But his notebooks told a different story. Endless rows of formulas, patterns, the kind of abstract beauty only a genius can see. By his 20s, Ted had a PhD in mathematics from the University of Michigan. His specialty was complex geometry. One professor admitted later, it was the kind of work you couldn't show anyone outside the field. Too advanced, too abstract. But instead of climbing to the top of academia, Ted disappeared. He left it all. The classrooms, the prestige, the future laid out before him, and he vanished into the woods. For years, no one really knew where he was. The boy genius who could have reshaped mathematics was building a cabin in Montana. No electricity, no running water. Just a man alone with his thoughts. And in that silence, those thoughts grew darker. Ted became convinced that modern society itself was a prison, that technology was destroying freedom, that people were slaves to machines they didn't even understand. And for Ted, belief wasn't enough. He needed proof. He needed action. That's when the bombs began. Between 1978 and 1995, a series of homemade explosives appeared across America. Universities, airlines, computer stores. Each device was handcrafted, meticulously engineered from scraps, wood, wires, nails. They weren't just bombs, they were puzzles, the kind of weapons only someone who thought in equations could create. Investigators struggled. The devices had no fingerprints, no electronic triggers, no traceable parts. Even the wood was hand-carved to avoid serial numbers. Each crime scene felt like an exam question without an answer. And that's why the FBI began calling him something unusual. Not just a killer, but a mathematician at war with the modern world. The manhunt lasted 17 years. It became one of the longest, costliest investigations in American history. Hundreds of agents, thousands of leads. None of them enough. And yet Ted wasn't invisible. In 1995, he sent something different, a manifesto, a 35,000-word essay demanding publication in major newspapers. Its title, Industrial Society and Its Future. In it, Ted argued that technology had enslaved humanity, stripped people of purpose, and that only by destroying the system could we be free. It was not the rant of a madman. It was disturbingly coherent. Some readers even admitted he wasn't entirely wrong, but in the words themselves was the clue that ended everything. When the essay was published, one man read it and recognized the voice. Not a detective, not a linguist, but Ted's own brother, David. The phrasing, the cadence, the obsession with technology and freedom, it was too familiar. David agonized over the decision. Turn in his own brother? Condemn him to prison for life? Or stay silent and watch the killings continue? In the end, David called the FBI. It was a choice that broke him, but one that finally led agents to a tiny cabin in the Montana woods. Inside, they found everything. Bomb components, handwritten journals, targets plans. The boy genius from Harvard was unmasked at last. When Ted Kaczynski was arrested, the world expected a monster. What they saw instead was a frail man, eyes sunken, beard unkempt. Not a Hollywood villain, not a mastermind in a suit, just a hermit who had spent decades waging war on a world he couldn't accept. And maybe that's what makes his story so haunting. Because behind the violence, behind the terror, was a question that still lingers. What happens when brilliance is twisted into obsession? When intelligence becomes isolation? When a man too smart for his own time decides that killing is the only way to be heard? Ted Kaczynski would spend the rest of his life in prison until his death in 2023. His bombs killed 3 people, injured 23 more, but his words outlived him. His manifesto is still studied today by scholars, by extremists, by anyone searching for answers about a man who turned genius into terror. And maybe that's the legacy of America's smartest killer. Not just the pain he caused, but the mirror he holds up to us. Because his story isn't only about murder. It's about the danger of a mind left unchecked. A reminder that intelligence, without empathy, without humanity, can be as destructive as any bomb.